Hello, I'm Nexus 846 and welcome to a review of Studio Series Thrust. Initially, this is a very cool looking sci-fi jet. Definitely alien in its appearance, but also still recognizable as a jet, which is something that the Cybertronian modes from the early movieverse did struggle with, but something they did get better at around TLK. But while accurate, this isn't at all realistic. There's no way something so thick could fly. Though granted, there is some tapering with the chunkitude here, and it's not like this is recognizable as robot mode parts. Also, weirdly enough, I think this is the first time where the vehicle mode has a fake part, because the two things above the strut where the gut goes on is supposed to be the shoulder pylons, but the real ones end up on the back. The wings are also pretty broken up and gappy. On a lot of the copies, the wing tips are pretty floppy and don't like to stay, so that is a problem. And as Perspective End has noticed, the only thrusters on this thing are pretty much pointed directly up, meaning that if they were to fire, he would constantly be, well, rolling upwards. So that pretty much immediately takes away any kind of realism this alt mode had, which is dumb because this is a movie design which should be more realistic. The main body of the jet mode also isn't all that consistent. The knees and hips are blatantly visible, and the thighs stick out like sore thumbs, considering they're not the same color of plastic as the surrounding parts. I feel like if they changed it from green to that same plastic, it would blend in a lot better. And these two panels at the top do not like staying together at all. For comparison, here's a Siege Seeker, which I honestly feel makes the more realistic alt mode. Helped very much by the fact that there appears to be 7 thrusters on the back, meaning this thing could probably go really fast in the pursuit of Autobots, and definitely fly on a thicker or not as dense atmosphere. Whichever direction it goes on Cybertron, it looks like this thing could fly. Gotta say, it is interesting how the fake cockpit chest things seem to end up on the same place on both figures, despite the wildly different transformations. Here's the only other Cybertronian mode we even saw in the movie. I see a lot of people wanting the Cybertron characters, but we only ever saw 2 alt modes. And we've seen some concept art, yes, but none of them have shown alt modes for the characters in these scenes. So the only real way you can get them is just by sticking to the Siege figures, which have already done this and look basically identical for, like, maybe except for 2 changed details. Speaking of which, here's Siege Ironhide, and I think you can see what I'm talking about here. These look like they absolutely come from the same thing. Nobody's been complaining about me not doing step-by-step transformations, so I guess this is just like the style of how I'm gonna do it. It is pretty fun and complex enough to be interesting, and to animate, though it does transform backwards, which isn't, it isn't a problem, but it's something that is a pet peeve to me, because I animate it. Here's my best attempt. This robot mode is odd looking. There's definitely some issues with it. For one, the biggest thing to me is that the forearms are a fucking mile long. Who signed off on that? Oh, and the wing guns don't have anywhere else to go. They can't put them on the arms like you would expect with a Seeker. And I've been called a G1er for this, but here's the thing. They actually did that in the movie. So asking for it to happen on the Studio Series figure is not being a G1er, because it's supposed to be accurate. Anyways, these things fall off, so fuck them. When I'm done with this review, I'm gonna glue them in their vehicle mode position and just never think of it again. Otherwise, he's got this blaster, which, aside from not pegging in all that securely, I think actually looks pretty good. I also gotta say, I really like how the legs transform, incorporating a lot of the vehicle mode kibble. And on the leg where the tip of the fin, tail fin, is, they've colored that gray so it blends in more and makes the legs look more symmetrical, unlike the Starscream version of this mold. Okay, back to stupidity. This design in the movie was a quickly redesigned version of the Blitzwing model, which had 2 landing gear for the toes, even though the alt mode it turned into only had 3 landing gear. And they kept that part of the design in, but they covered it up with like some dinky little panel, and it looks so stupid. This is more of a complaint on the design, because, Studio Series is meant to be accurate. You can't complain when they're doing stuff that's accurate to the models. But this is dumb. This has always looked dumb to me, and it's mind-boggling how people got away with it, because there's no way to do this without fake parts or making the vehicle mode inaccurate. I also feel like the back of the shins are pretty bare, but I guess that's for vehicle mode anyways. I feel like a couple extra panel lines would have made this better. I also just think this chest is too bulky. For a jet transformer, it's just too thick. Granted, it hides the nose cone well and all, but I don't know, this just doesn't work, especially considering how thin the arms and thighs are. And there's something about the shoulders. The fact that the actual bits are so long and yet they're pegged so low makes it feel a bit awkward to me. I don't know. I think that is the most nitpickiest thing of a complaint about my review so far. The fake nose cone, though, is so fucking stupid. Okay, so this is based on the G1 cone heads, but the thing about the cone heads is that the cone was on their heads. This is dumb. A fucking sentient robot would never have a design choice like that. It limits head mobility, they can't look behind them. What fucking advantage does this give them? And in terms of the figure, it limits head articulation. And that's in combination with the fact that the head is also easily able to be popped off. But hey, that dumbass figure allows me to absolutely confirm that this head was taken straight off of Blitzwing. Oh, cool. Okay. Okay, so according to scale charts, Blitzwing was taller than the Cybertron Seekers. Yet in Studio Series, a line which focuses on scale and accuracy, the Cybertronian mode is taller than the guy who's supposed to be taller than the Cybertronian mode. People say this is the better movie. I'm pressing X really goddamn hard. But back to something positive. The back is really friggin' clean, and I love how the wings work. They allow for a lot of optional displayage. You can keep them in vehicle mode form for a more broader look. Angle it all up to give it this neat curvature, which from the simple geometry of this thing, which is actually really smart in how that's done. And it changes up the silhouette so much. God, this is actually really good character design. And it's so rare to see in these Cybertronian designs. I'd love to see this return in Rise of the Beast or any future movies. Yet I feel like they're gonna still be going in the fucking G1er direction. And then this is the movie accurate configuration. Articulation is all pretty standard, except for the head. You can still get it to turn and look in the direction that he's shooting, but it's a lot harder to do so. So again, the fucking nose cone, the fake nose cone, it's not even the fucking real one, it just gets in the way. Luckily, though, the angle up is unsurpassed in either version of this mold, be it the Blitzwing or Starscream version, and looking up is a very important thing for a flying character to be able to do, so... That's a weird trade-off, I guess. I will say, though, that the long forearms and relaxed hands do make more threatening stances a bit harder to pull off. But hey, he's got enough stance to pull off a judo kick right to someone's kisser. Before we get into comparisons, I will say that the paint is alright. I do like the color layout. The combination of the bright green, the off gray, and the actually pretty satisfying olive, along with a little bit of gunmetal gray and some blackish brown stuff in just the right places make this a pretty interesting thing to look at and pretty unique. Though I will say that I would have greatly preferred if they had leaned more in the Armada thrust direction. Here he is with the other Cybertronian figures from the movie. Oh, and Bumblebee's there too. Siege Seeker and... Wow. Okay, I'm gonna say it. You get a lot more bang for your buck just in terms of plastic here. I still think the Siege Seeker is better designed, though. The best Chug Optimus Prime, don't at me. And the other Decepticons from the movie. All in all, I think Thrust is okay. The transformation is all well good and fun. The articulation is pretty much normal. He looks pretty good, color-wise, but vehicle mode kind of sucks, and the robot mode, there's a lot of visual issues, aside from the wings, which are really clever. I don't think you should build a whole army of these, though, because... I mean, we did just get the Siege ones. Anyways, I've been Nexus 8846 Productions, and until next time, transform and rise up!